What?
Johnny will get a prize every week he does.
He can watch it, yeah.
I think he's going to talk to me about, I think that's what I saw this text this morning, and I was trying to like get down and make sure I get this. Christina, something. And for the national East Ashland, Oakland,
say something? How are you?
I needed taken care of.
We're bringing education this year in bringing the talent of our community and diversity of our experiences and talents to the education community, which we're really excited to our agents here. So Chris is going to kick us off the new year with what we feel is greatly appropriate in setting and moving mindset. And I've had an experience with Chris as far as when he moved here to town, how assertive he was in making contact with me, and I know many others, to get a plan together, as I think you'll share some of your career transition and how this all came about. So let's give him a hand. And
thank you very much. So I am Christopher Esqueda. I work with you all here at Village. You may have remembered me. I used to have a mustache, and a Tom Selleck mustache, and I was camped out downstairs for all of 2019. I'm a new agent. I just finished my first year in business, thank God. April 2020 is going to be my 2-year anniversary of living in Nashville. I'm humbled and honored to be speaking in front of you. I'm glad that Zach and Teddy are forcing me to do this. A big 2020 goal of mine this year is to get more comfortable speaking in front of people, because I have sort of a slight anxiety. I don't really today, because I did a triple dose of CBD and maybe took a Xanax before I got up here. So if I start dosing off, just throw something. But I'll try and stay away from this. I'm also a little sick, so pardon me if I don't speak loud. If you can't hear me, just let me know. I'll try and talk louder. But what got me most excited about this challenge for me was that, getting to talk about mindset and how, what monumental impact it had on any marginal success I had in my first year of business. I do feel a little silly talking in front of you about here, because in no way, shape, or form am I an authority on this subject. You're not going to hear any original content other than my background story. Everything's going to be purely just me regurgitating stuff that I've listened to, watched, or read over the last few years that have made an impact in my life. And so, as Tony Robbins would say, I'm not your guru. I'm also aware that everyone in this room probably already knows what mindset is. I'm sure everyone knows exactly what it is. I'm sure everyone is probably putting some form of practice of mindset into their daily life. I think you kind of have to, especially as a real estate agent. You can get beat up pretty bad. But my ultimate goal is that if you pick pick up just one thing from my story or my habit that interests you, you explore it a little bit more, you put it into practice, and it does something to move the needle in your life or your business, it was totally worth all the stress and anxiety that I had about this today. And so before we jump into like mindset and what it is, like I said, I really feel like most of you probably already have a pretty good idea of what mindset is. I didn't want to come up here and just give you a bunch of like handouts and talk about morning routines and talk about all this stuff that most of us already know. What's always resonated most for me in stuff that I've listened to and watched is hearing someone's story and hearing how they put into practice things and how it affected their life and kind of where they came from and why these things matter and how they made their life better. And so I'm going to tell you kind of my background, and I'm not doing it because I like talking about my story. I definitely am not too excited about telling everyone my past struggles, failures, heartache, pain, or even my successes. But I'm going to do it anyways. And then I'm going to attempt to bring it back in full circle, and then we can dive into mindset and talk about routines and stuff that's worked really well for me. But so I was born in Santa Barbara, California. My dad was an auto mechanic. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I'm the oldest of two. And after high school and a failed attempt for working for my dad at his automotive repair shop, instead of going to school, much to their dismay, they got really happy when it didn't work out very well, and I ended up going back to school. I decided after a year of being back in school that I wanted to get out of Santa Barbara because what a horrible place to grow up. Pretty terrible. And so I decided, I was dating a girl at the time, and she got accepted to San Francisco State. And so I said, that sounds great. I've never been there before. That sounds about as exotic and extreme as I could possibly go. It's kind of always been my story. And so I told my parents I was moving to San Francisco. They were not excited about that, and they told me that you're more than welcome to go, but because you're just in city college, like you're going on your own, we're not going to support you. We'll talk about supporting you when you're in a university, because you can go to city college here and it's much better. It didn't matter to me, I went anyways. I quickly realized that it's really expensive living on your own, not living with your parents anymore. And so I was 19 years old in the big city of San Francisco, eating spaghetti and top ramen and freezer pizzas and going to city college. And I didn't have a car, so I was riding public transportation and buses around. I needed to make more money, and I needed to make more money fast. I was working in retail and did pretty good. I worked at Nordstrom and sold like men's sportswear and fancy clothes and whatnot. He said, awesome, what experience do you have? And I said, I worked at In-N-Out Burger in high school for 2 years. And he said, that's really cool, but that's not going to cut it. It's not going to get you a job here. So go get a job at a restaurant, and then come back during the holidays, Christmas time, we hire extra help, and I'll put in a good word for you and get you an interview and everything. So I went around a bunch of restaurants and tried to figure out who would hire a 19-year-old with no restaurant experience in the city of San Francisco. I landed at Olive Garden, because when you're there, you're family. They taught me the true art of hospitaliano. I got endless soup, salad, and breadsticks, which I loved because, like I said, I was living on spaghetti and top ramen, so I was in heaven. 6 months later, I did go back to that friend and say, hey, I'm ready, put me in, coach. He got me the interview. I was still real nervous. I went in and wore a full suit and tie to this restaurant interview. It was pretty funny. On recommendation of my dad. I got the job and then started working at this restaurant. It was amazing. They also scheduled me for the first 3 months every Saturday and Sunday brunch at 6:45, and so I'd have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to get to work on time. And as a 19-year-old in college, you know that is pretty unheard of. It wasn't easy for me, but this was like a classic French bistro, celebrity chef. He cussed at the cooks in the back. He cussed at you in English and French. He threw pots and pans. He would wield a knife. He burned a server's hand on a hot top one time that ended in a lawsuit. I mean, it was, if you've ever studied Anthony Bourdain, like Kitchen Confidential stuff, this was like that story. And I loved it. I was like, I was so dude. I kind of came from humble beginnings, and so we never really ate at like fancy restaurants. Like Olive Garden was kind of like a good restaurant that we would go to. So it's my first experience being around like foie gras and caviar and oysters and bottles of wine that were more than $50, and cocktails and cappuccinos, and they made our own pan of chocolat in-house, and it was a pretty cool experience. I worked there for about 2 years and kind of worked my way up into being more of like a senior server, captain server. With my friend who had gotten me the job. And then at that point, a former manager had left and came back and poached us for a new restaurant opening that was happening across town. I had never been part of a restaurant opening before. I had no idea what that entailed. I was, pretty naive to the whole thing. But I just said yes because it sounded exciting, and I felt like I'd kind of gotten everything I could out of that restaurant that I was at there before. There's a quote to kind of talk about Tony Robbins again. It says that, it's the moments of decision that our destiny is shaped, and never was that more true, other than maybe when I decided to move into real estate, than this decision of going to this restaurant. And this was another leveling up as far as restaurants are concerned, a little bit nicer. And one of the managers and the beverage director was this young 25-year-old hotshot sommelier. At the time, he was lauded as the top. Is that getting a little feedback? He was kind of lauded as like the top young sommelier in the nation. Sommelier, they're a wine professional, so call them cork dorks. But he'd like to tell you the world, but he was like the top sommelier in the country. He was 25 years old, and he got me hook, line, and sinker. He drove a BMW, he wore nice suits, he had a Rolex watch. I was captivated. He could smell a wine, he could tell you he could blind taste, he could drink a glass of wine, smell it, tell you what grapes were in it, or what grape it was, what village in what part of France, in Burgundy, France, what parcel, who the winemaker was, maybe what he had for breakfast that morning, and what year it was from. And I was like, what the hell? How do you even do that? I didn't even know that was something that happened. He was like the Harry Houdini of wine. I was super captivated. So I soaked up everything he was teaching us during this opening period, during training and everything, and I was really excited, and it really kind of furthered my love and passion for restaurants and for hospitality and for guest experience. He kind of came from this extremely high-level restaurant life that I'd never even been to one of these restaurants before, and he'd been working it for years, and so his amount of knowledge was just was immense, and I just wanted to be a sponge, and I wanted to know everything that he knew, and I wanted to be like him one day. I was maybe not exactly like him, but I was like, I want to own a restaurant, and you got to be careful what you wish for, because sometimes it comes true. 3 months into the opening, I pulled him aside and I said, hey, I want you to teach me everything that you know. He laughed at me and he said, when do you think I'm going to have any time to do that? We're right in the middle of the restaurant opening. I'm here from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't have any extra time to teach you anything more than I'm sharing with you at our wine classes and everything. He says, I see that you're studying, I see you're applying stuff, and I think that's awesome. I don't have any more time. And I couldn't accept that as an answer for some reason. I've kind of always been a little hard-headed that way. And so I said, if I show up on my own time early to work, or stay late, on my own time, on my own dime, help you put wine away and break down boxes, or maybe can I sit in on a tasting, or, can I just be around, and if you have a little time to teach me something, give me some books to read, and I can ask you questions. He kind of laughed it off, and I think he thought I was kidding, and he said, sure, I get here at 10 a.m. every day, and I do tastings on Tuesday. I showed up to work early every day for the next probably 7 months. I made it to every Tuesday tasting, and eventually started driving him around to appointments that he'd have. I was basically his sidekick, his buddy, and drove him to all these tastings and appointments, and I'd run errands for him and take his dry cleaning and all of this stuff before I'd start my shift at the restaurant. And, at this point, I was in San Francisco State, getting a business marketing degree. I was able to meet and taste with all of the top producers of wine in Napa and Sonoma, and really the world when they come into town all the the top reps. We went to after-hours tastings at these fancy restaurants and blind tasted wines that were like 30 to 70 years old with all these top sommeliers that have been in the business forever. We went to these crazy opulent dinners with multiple courses with all of this wines. I went in as guests, and they were all paid for by these wine collectors and distributors. I was like in heaven. It was like an amazing, amazing experience for me. We also partied into the wee hours of the morning very, very often with other restaurant owners and nightclub owners because it all kind of connected, especially in San Francisco. The credo for restaurants has always been work hard and play way harder. And so because you work at night, you get off work at 1 in the morning or 12, midnight, and so we go out after. And so I got to meet all these other nightlife people and restaurant people. I was always his sidekick, and I got to meet all these people that I never really would have got to meet otherwise. I was living the dream, and a year and a half into that restaurant opening, he left the partnership. He had a falling out with the partners, and we were still really good friends and still hanging out all the time. Work kind of went on as normal, but he got a little restless, and he came to me one night and said, "Hey, we should start a business." And I said, what and how? Like, why would we start? Like, what business would we start? I'm 21 years old or 22 years old. What could we possibly do? And he wouldn't really kind of let it go. And so we ended up doing this like wine tasting event where we invited a bunch of friends, and we had winemakers pour wine. We partnered with a restaurant buddy of ours. We made some food, and we had a DJ play. It was a blast. We didn't make any money. We lost a few $100. But it was super fun. My mom drove up from Santa Barbara because she was real proud of me. And all the winemakers got her so hammered. Like the most hammered I'd ever seen her. And it was the first time I'd ever seen her drunk. And it was like a highlight of my life. I saved a voicemail. She left me for years to extort money from her. It was pretty awesome. But shortly after that, he got a call from a chef buddy of his and said, "Hey, I've got this commercial space and I'm doing this project, and I have the opportunity to do this Sunday night pop-up dinner that I've been thinking about. Will you do the wine for him?" And Mark came to me and said, "Hey, I've got this buddy that wants to do this dinner. He wants me to run the wine in front of the house and stuff, but you know that I'm kind of lazy. I don't really want to deal with the business stuff. I don't want to do the front of the house. I want you to do that, and I won't do it if you don't do it." So I said yes, of course, and I didn't really know what that meant, but we met once and three more times after that, 8 weeks later with a $5,000 loan from a friend. We put together this Sunday night pop-up dinner. It was 6 courses with wine pairing for like $65. We sold like 20 or 25 tickets to friends and family. It was absolute chaos, but it was so much fun. It was really, really cool. It seemed like people enjoyed it. And unbeknownst to us, but there was someone there who was a good friend of the restaurant critic in San Francisco, Michael Bauer. And we didn't know this, but apparently he wrote a little blurb about it online and put it in the Sunday print of the newspaper. And so a week had gone by, and it was that Sunday afternoon, and I checked we put this rudimentary website together, kind of jokingly, and we were getting these emails, and they started coming in, and in 24 hours we got like 300 or 400 emails for people wanting reservation requests. And we said, well, obviously we're going to maybe need to do this more than once a month on Sundays. So we called the owner and said, "Hey, can we do every Sunday for the rest of the year?" We were super excited, and then I was heading back to my other restaurant job that I was working at, my real job. And I got a call from my manager, and they said, "Hey, can you come in to work a little bit early tomorrow?" I said, "Sure." And sorry, pardon me, I've got a runny nose. So they asked if I could come in a little early to, I didn't really know what for. And I got there and all the partners were sitting down. And they said, "Hey, we know you're working with Mark and we're going through some legal stuff, and so there's a conflict of interest. You're going to have to decide, you can work with Mark or you can work with us." And I was 23 at the time, and I don't really know what overcame me, maybe temporary insanity, but I said, I guess this is going to have to be my 2 weeks notice then. And they said, all right, well, we actually don't need your services anymore. And so at that point, I didn't have a job. I had this pop-up, but I had no idea how we were going to make money. We'd done one and we lost money. So that was interesting. And so this is where I'm going to kind of fast forward over the next 7 years. Mostly because it just talks about things that I've done, and I don't think that necessarily that's that important, but it does kind of tell the story of where this mindset, I promise I'll bring this all back into some mindset stuff. But we grew that restaurant from one Sunday a month to every Sunday to every Saturday, Sunday to every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then got investors and turned it into a full restaurant. It's still open today. It was the first restaurant in San Francisco that got 3 Michelin stars. At its peak, it was number 27 on the San Pellegrino World's Top 50 Restaurants and stayed there for 2 years. It was an amazing accomplishment, and by all sense of the meaning, was a huge success. But for me, 3.5 years in, I was the most unhappy and depressed person I'd ever been in my life. I lost every friend I had because I was working nonstop. I was 26, 27 years old, and every time I looked at myself in the mirror, I was dreading going to work. I'd sold most things that I owned while we were growing the business, and so I was kind of forced into this extreme work. My romantic relationships were all toxic at best. I hated my work, and I couldn't remove myself from the hatred that I had. The chef and I never got along ever. He was a terrible person inside and out. He's a better person now because he's aged a little bit. We're friends-ish. But it was one of the most difficult decisions. There was this thing that I built, and 4 years later, here I was, and I made the decision that I had to walk away from it. So I walked away from the day-to-day operations, and then went on to consult for a restaurant for a year until we got a Michelin star. I got an opportunity to open a coffee shop wine bar with some nightclub owners who I patronized their club way too often, which is how that came about. And then opened my own restaurant during that time as well. And then also had the opportunity to open another taco and tequila bar right near Union Square. That was pretty awesome. And now on paper, all this has to sound like one of the most successful stories for a 23-year-old degenerate like myself, covered in tattoos, barely getting through school. And while yes, on paper they all were very, very successful stories, inside I had never felt more unfulfilled, empty, and dead, really. It was really during the opening of my own restaurant, Huxley, that my world kind of started slipping away from me a little bit. My alcohol consumption was steadily increasing, as was my weight. I was working 12 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. When we opened Matador, I worked for 6 months in a row without taking a day off. I was getting home at sunrise. It was happening way too often. And all someone had to say was, hey, we're going to this party after, and I was there, wanted to be the life of it, needed to escape all of the pain that I was experiencing, working so many hours and being so unfulfilled. At surface level, everyone must assume that I had it all, but underneath, I had nothing. My partners at the wine bar politely, and you say that jokingly, they forcefully bought me out of that business far below market value, but I had no contract, and they owned the real estate. So I had nothing I could do. I built that business on my own blood, sweat, and tears, and that really burned me and put me into a dark place. My restaurant wasn't performing as promised, and my partner Mark got us into a little heat with our main investor, a very powerful and wealthy woman from China, who insinuated that she was going to cause some problems for us if Mark didn't get his shit together. And so I was stuck in the middle of a lover's quarrel. It had nothing to do with me, but I was left to pick up the pieces in my business and in my personal life. And so when we opened the last restaurant, and I worked those 6 months in a row, that's when my personal health began to fade. It started to fade really fast. It started with a limp that I couldn't get rid of. That was probably from being on my feet for 12 hours a day. And then it was a heart attack scare that sent me to the emergency room at age 30. That wasn't a heart attack, but they didn't know what it was, so they just gave me a prescription for Vicodin and said, go get better. That was fine, except I had to sleep sitting up for a week, and I had excruciating pain for 2 months. In that second month, I woke up one morning, finally being able to sleep sitting down again, and I couldn't move my hands or my feet. I couldn't close my hands. I had trouble getting out of bed. I was stiff as a board. It was like, I imagined it was like what an extreme case of arthritis felt like. It scared shit out of me. And so I went back to my doctor, and they ran a full gamut of tests, went to specialist after specialist, and diagnosed me with the autoimmune disease. They called it, we have no fucking clue. And so since they didn't have any idea what it really was, and also because there was no cure for it, they said the only way that I was going to get better is if I have a better diet, exercise, rest, and reduce my stress. I laughed. And that was the only way. I said, that's the only way. There's nothing else. There's not a pill or something I can take. He said, well, you can take 2 malaria pills every day for the rest of your life. We've heard sometimes people have some marginal success with that. I didn't know how the hell I was going to do either of those. I hate taking pills constantly. I definitely at that time didn't have a good diet, wasn't exercising, never rested, and was stressed constantly. So the catalyst for change in my life was this moment. And this is where mindset started to take place, and I knew that I was spiraling out of control. I had complete disregard for my health and well-being, and all the while at surface level, everything seemed great. I never asked people for help. It's always been a flaw of mine that I've changed drastically within the last 2 years. A lot of you in here probably had me ask them a million questions, and I appreciate you always being willing to give me an answer. What ended up being the catalyst for change was one more day, same after not really caring. I woke up one more time and I couldn't get out of bed. My girlfriend at the time had to carry me to the bathroom and put me in a hot bath so that I could I felt like I could defrost, and I broke down. I started crying, and it was in that moment that I knew that if I didn't change something, I really thought I was going to die. I made a decision in that moment that I had to leave everything that I knew, everything that I was. I had to leave my friends in San Francisco. I had to leave my restaurants and bars behind, my 13 years in the city. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that I couldn't be there anymore. So I called my partners and finally told them the story. None of them really knew what was going on. I hadn't told them any of this, and I finally told them the truth. I didn't want to tell them because I didn't want it to affect the business at all. And so I kind of braced for the worst, and it never came. They all told me the same thing. They said, why didn't you tell us sooner? I spent the next 6 months plotting my escape, and I landed on Nashville. My friend who got me that first restaurant job at that fancy restaurant moved here 7 or 8 years ago. And he was happily married, he owned a home, he had a dog. They were all these things that just seemed like an impossible dream to me, and I said, that sounds really nice. I could never have that in San Francisco. I'm paying $3,500 a month for rent for a 600 square foot apartment. I need to get out of here. So I sold the restaurant, I got out of my partnerships, after settling some debts and everything, I had about $50,000 in my bank account. And before I was moving out here, I said, I can't just move and then just like kind of keep going. I need to figure something out. Something's not working in my life. It's not clicking. I'm not happy. And I said, I want to have my eat, pray, love moment. So I decided to go traveling. I hadn't been on a vacation in 7 years. So what day was that? Let's see. So January 2nd, 2017, I jumped on a plane and went and saw some friends get married in Nicaragua for a week. And then jumped on a plane and went traveling throughout Thailand and Vietnam for 11 weeks, almost 12 weeks. My partners before I left told me, you should do real estate. That's what we do. We work fractionally as hard as you do, and we make exponentially more amounts of money than you do. They're real estate investors, not real estate agents. We still work very hard. And so on their recommendation, that's when I started listening to podcasts. and audiobooks. I was traveling for 12 weeks. I bought some really nice Bose in-ear headphones and would listen to a podcast. The podcasts that I first kind of started listening to were Bigger Pockets. They were real estate investors, and so I wanted to learn more about real estate investing. And then I got really hooked on this one called How I Built This with Guy Raz. He interviews CEOs and founders of massive companies. He talks with them about where they started, how they got there. They kind of tell their story, kind of like I'm telling you today, but they are doing far bigger and greater things than I ever did. One thing kept coming up over and over, and that was that each person who experienced any great success never, ever got there without first going through massive failure, pain, and struggle. And so it gave me a glimmer of hope. I landed in Nashville in April of 2018, still pretty lost. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was much healthier from not working for 3 months, which was great. But I was kind of ready to hit the start button on this new life. I was kind of a clean slate. No one knew who I was. I had no idea what I was doing. But I still didn't really know where to begin. And so my initial thought, obviously, is because I always default towards restaurants, I thought I'd open restaurants and bars again here. But I didn't know the market, and so I had the same friend that got me the job in San Francisco got me a job here in Nashville at a restaurant called Folk in East Nashville. If you haven't been, you should go today. While the restaurant was awesome, I loved it. It's my favorite restaurant in the city. What they do there is incredible. Within 3 or 4 months, I kind of knew that it wasn't going to do it for me. It wasn't the spark that I had in my early 20s, how excited I was about doing all that stuff. It wasn't moving the needle for me anymore. And so, again, I called some of my mentors back in San Francisco and I said, I want to talk more about this real estate thing. And spent a few weeks talking with them, spent a few weeks doing some soul searching and a ton of research. And it was at that time that I decided that I think doing residential real estate would be a really low stress, easy way for me to sort of get into real estate and try to figure out what exactly real estate means for me. It also sounded a lot more fun than like doing commercial real estate. So I got my license in October, and then on a family trip to Portland, this is October of last year, no, 2 years ago. And then on a family trip to Portland while I was away, I was in a relationship with a girl for 5 years, and she kind of went on this traveling trip with me and moved out here with me as well. But I realized that relationship also needed to come to an end. I'm kind of living this idea of massive change, and so I decided to massively change every aspect of my life. Nothing that I was before, nothing I had before was going to be the same as it is going to be now. And so when I got back, I sat her down and told her that I'm about to embark on a journey, and unfortunately I need to do it on my own. I'm unhappy. We love each other, but we're not in love. And I'm a terrible partner, and I need to change that, and I have to do that on my own. And so we separated, and I embarked on this journey of transformation. And I was not qualified to be someone's partner, and she understood that. We're really dear and close friends today. But I had a dream of being happy and fulfilled, because I hadn't been happy and fulfilled in almost 10 years. I signed up with Village in November. I did my jumpstart classes and onboarding classes and everything in December, and announced in January that I was no longer restaurant Chris, but real estate Chris, and was just sitting back waiting for the business to start flooding in. Not the case. And so I kept working at the restaurant at night, 5 nights a week, and then playing real estate in the mornings. But I finally felt that spark again, like I felt when I first went to that restaurant at age 21, 22. I was excited about how little I knew, and I was excited about how much there was to learn. It was at this time that I increased my podcast, YouTube, and book consumption tenfold. Last year I listened to 1,100 hours of podcasts. I read 24 books. I joined 5 networking groups. I hired a business coach, and slowly over the course of the year I tried to break every bad habit that I had built over 10 years and course correct my life. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is the definition of insanity, and I was done being an insane person. All of these podcasts kept talking in this self-help language. I grew up Christian, and so my parents weren't really self-help people. It was always like, put your faith in Jesus, and I think that's great and awesome. But this self-help stuff started kind of speaking to me. And they were mentioning things like mindset, morning routines, coaching, affirmations, and forever I would have been the kind of person that was like, what is that frou-frou stuff? Like, do you want me to say this stuff out loud in the mirror? That is kind of weird. But I said, what do I have to lose? Let's give it a try. And so anytime they mention a podcast, anytime they recommend something, I would pull it up, I'd listen to it, I'd buy the book, I'd buy the audiobook, I'd read it, and try and consume it immediately. They mentioned names like Tony Robbins, Robin Sharma, Jim Rohn. I'd go on YouTube, I'd listen to their presentations multiple times a day. It felt good to have someone telling you positive things when you think inside that you're failing at life. So just to listen to someone talking about having a positive mindset when you don't have one gives you even just a little slight edge. And it made me feel better. It opened a whole new world to all these people talking about a lot of the same struggles and a ton that were way worse than anything I ever went through. It gave me hope, it gave me a feeling. They described in detail how they pulled themselves out of the sort of despair and pain that they were experiencing, and they explained how they did it. And success leaves clues. With our unlimited access to information, I had no excuse not to figure out how to achieve everything that I wanted to and more. So I'm happy to say that last year I hit all of my business goals. I achieved, and now full disclosure, I did edit those goals month 6. Originally I heard a Sion story of 10 million in production his first year, but quickly realized that no amount of podcasts or positive affirmations could replace serving in Israeli military special forces. If I had a quarter of the heart of that beast, dedication and focus of that guy, maybe I could have done it. I mean, he didn't even own a laptop. And while the business goals felt great to accomplish, the stuff that hit me the most and that mattered the most and that made the most impact and change in my life was accomplishing the personal goals that I set for myself. Having been depressed and unhappy for years, having not felt fulfilled for many, the ones that changed my life made all the rest come a lot easier. It's a lot easier to be successful in business when your life is firing on all cylinders. If your life is kind of feeling terrible and you're depressed and you're unhappy, it's pretty impossible to have a successful business. So I wrote my journal 152 days last year. This year is going to be every single day. I wrote and said out loud my favorite quote: success is something you attract by the person that you become. I wrote it on the chalkboard in my kitchen. I had it noted in my phone. I almost got it tattooed on my forearm. I didn't, or not yet at least. But, and it's true, success is not a doing process. I had done success before. It left me unhappy, unfulfilled. And success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. It is a becoming process, and it doesn't happen overnight. This journey has taken me 10 plus years to get to this point. I've had to start my life all over again from scratch and slowly build my life back up. But this time I'm doing it with focus, intention, and a much clearer vision of where I want to go. It still weighs heavy on my conscience many days. So by no means do I have it figured out. Our minds are not our friends. I need to constantly shift my thoughts away from the harshest critic located between my ears and focus on what I want to grow. I have to do this maybe 30 to 40 times a day. Like I said, listening to positive things throughout the day is a game changer for me. It's constantly whispering in my ear that I'm too old, that I'm too young, I'm too inexperienced, I'm not good enough, I'm not wealthy enough, I'm not fit enough, I'm not working hard enough. And like I said, I don't have this figured out. I still feel lost most days. I feel like what I'm doing isn't working, and I'm constantly battling with limiting beliefs. But I have a program now, I have a routine, I have a direction, I have a coach, and I get to work with a bunch of really inspiring and talented real estate agents here at Village. It's why I show up to the office every day. I want to watch everyone coming in and out. I want to watch people talking on their phones. I imagine everyone talking on their phone is talking about some big, massive deal. I love hearing people making deals. I love people pulling up in their cool cars. I love hearing people talking about vacations that they're taking or that they took. I look at everyone that is doing stuff constantly. I look at the transactions people are doing. I look at listings that people have. And I do it not because I want to compare myself to anyone else, but I do it because it inspires me and it gives me direction and it lets me know that I can do that too. I don't think I could have ended up in a better place. And that's all I have for that. Success is something you attract by the person that you become. And it's been so now I'll kind of go into, I don't want to just come up here and tell you all this stuff to do, and everyone knows all the things to do, and so I want to more resonate with how it worked for me. This book was pretty great. I've worked in the restaurant industry, so I was a night owl forever. This book was pretty great, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, about setting up a morning routine. That was my biggest goal last year, and so I went from, I'd wake up around 10 or 11 a.m., but I also would go to bed on average around 3 or 4 in the morning. Now I wake up at 5:30. I don't know how, but I do, and not every day, 5:30 to 6:30, but I try and wake up at 5:30 every day, because it's kind of in that silence in the morning where you can really, that morning time is all about me. So I focus 100% completely on myself. I do nothing business related in the morning, and I kind of talk about, let's kind of jump in, I guess, to my routine and what's worked for me. And I want everyone to kind of take away that really it's not about what I do. I'm not going to give you a framework and you're going to go home and do it. You're going to be like, oh great, everything's better. I have to sort of take bits and pieces from a lot of things, because there's, 10,000 people out there that can tell you what to do. Everyone has their own method, and not everything works for every person. These are some things that worked for me, but what I encourage you to do is to jump into it more. If it's something that you're really trying to do or trying to focus on, jump into it, do some research, read some books, and find some things that work for you, because not everything is going to. But so, my morning routine is I try to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I read one chapter of a book. Right now I'm reading this book called This, Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. I kind of say yes to everything, especially in the beginning. I think that's totally fine, but as you build your business and you become busier, you have to really say no to more stuff than you say yes to. I'm not there yet, but I will be. And then after that, I meditate for 20 minutes. Meditation, I don't know, it's kind of a funny one for me. If I had to say, what's the most important thing that's changed my life, I think it's been meditation. Meditation or journaling, or the combination of those two things. So, I'll read a chapter in a book, I'll meditate for 20 minutes, and then I'll jump into my journal. I journal, like I said, I journaled about 150 something days last year. This year I'm going to journal every day, because this is also a big part of what's changed my life. What I journal about is really, you can write about anything. It doesn't really matter. It was a little difficult for me in the beginning, but what I've found is that if I read a chapter in a book that is really speaking to me, and then meditate, after that, I can sort of write out what I processed with what I just read. And then I'll do, and then I'll write 2 things that made me happy yesterday. What did I do yesterday? What wasn't? It doesn't matter what it is, just anything that made you happy the day before, I'll write those out. And then I write out 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then I write out 3 things that I want to get done, either that day or that week. I'll usually do a combination of the 2, something I want to get done that day, 2 things I want to get done that week. And then I'll write down 3 goals for the year. And these are ones that it's the same goal every single day. I'll write it out over and over and over again. And then I write out 3 affirmations and then try and say them out loud. So to give you an example, I'll read what I wrote in my journal today. In reading this book, I read the chapter on clarify, so clarifying your vision. There was a really great quote here. It said, "To follow without halt one aim, there is the secret to success." And so what I took from this chapter is I put clarifying your life's purpose and direction. Just as in business life, you need to have a clear and meaningful mission statement. It should help explain your why. It should make your focus and direction clear. It should give an insight into your story. I don't have one, and I don't know why I don't. If I did, maybe mine would be add value in every way to every person I come in contact with through an abundance mindset, a full heart, and clear eyes. I've never written out my personal mission statement before, and I don't know why. It's so clear to me now, especially as a solopreneur. If my personal principles don't align with my business principles, does that make me a liar? I need to continue to align myself with actions, directions needed to succeed this year, getting these things match up, blah, blah, blah. And then I wrote, my first night at Multifamily University last night made me happy. I can't wait to learn more about this. I have a goal this year. I'd like to buy some multifamily properties. And so I enrolled in a multifamily university class that meets twice a month. Having a conversation with Grant last night about his commercial investments and strategies motivated me, made me smile. It's another thing we're hopefully buying a commercial development in the next couple weeks that I'm pretty excited about and that I've been working on for the past year. I'm grateful that Zach asked me to speak today, even though I'm scared shitless. I know this stuff works. Keep your abundance mindset. I'm grateful for the herbal tea I'm drinking. What a blessing it is to my throat. I'm grateful for all my amazing plant friends that keep my company. And then you kind of go into your goals. It really doesn't matter what you write. It's just the act of doing it every single day. Where it starts to come in is goals. So setting goals is also a really, really important thing. Zach kind of talked about the reticular activator. It's really like you have to trick yourself every day, and you have to think that you've already achieved your goals. It sounded really like hippy-dippy to me, but I lived in San Francisco for 13 years, so I'd try anything twice. So overcoming those limiting beliefs by writing out your goals like you've already accomplished them. Happiness, true happiness, what I realized, it doesn't come from achieving your goals. You achieve your goal, you're going to be happy, it's going to be fairly instant, but I guarantee in a few hours it's going to wear off because, what's next? Right? So you want to have $1 million house, you work, you get this $1 million house, and then you're like, okay, I'm set. Probably not going to keep you happy for very long. The happiness comes from the progress of achieving your goals. So for me, I always make sure that I have goals in the pipeline, meaning I'll never achieve every single goal that I set for myself, because if I do, that's when I'm going to be unhappy. And I need to find happiness in the progress. And also, I'm really difficult because I'm a really big critic on myself. But I also try and enjoy and allow myself to experience joy when I have a success. I try not to give too much weight to it, because I think if you focus on negative things in your life, you can't give any more weight to a negative thing than you can for a positive thing. I think it's more, like I said, sort of about that journey that you're on that you need to be focusing on, not about what you're accomplishing or what you're not accomplishing. It's about the small things that you're doing every day to make your life better, to make your business better, to increase your business. That's where you can really find a lot of the happiness in. And I think that's been the biggest game changer for me. I was so focused my whole life on trying to get, if I open one more restaurant, I'm going to be happy. If I make $75,000 or $100,000 more a year, then I'm going to be happy. If it was all these things, and then you would do it, and then it didn't make me happy. And then so it was kind of constantly going on to the next thing. Now I just find happiness in the progress. That's kind of really all I had. I mean, I think there's tons of stuff you can do. A big thing for me as well is exercising. I can't stress this enough. I feel better now than I did when I was 21 years old. I exercise at least 5 days a week. I do the sauna and the steam room, which has been a game changer for me. It kind of goes back into that thing before, like that morning period that you have. You know, if you wake up at 5:30 and let's say you start work at 9 or 8:30, like that, those hours right there, don't wake up early so you can start working earlier. Wake up early so you can have extra time to focus on yourself. And so exercising and keeping a healthy body, affirmations and journaling and meditation so you can have a healthy mind are the foundation to having any sort of success on a business level, in my opinion. Because I had the success on a business level before, but I had a shit mind and I had a shit body. And I'll tell you that I would never do anything like that again. I'd rather be broke, but be physically healthy and mentally happy than have any sort of financial success I could possibly have and sacrifice any of that stuff. The ultimate goal is to get all of those things to work in harmony, and that's what I'm focusing on now. So, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. But I think the other thing too is why I didn't want to put a bunch of stuff up is because really it's about you have to create your own path. There's a million different ways, right? It's just like leads for real estate. You can get leads 1,000 different ways. You're not going to do 1,000 different ways because not every way is going to work for you and it's not going to resonate the same. So it's about exploring and researching and trying different things that work, trying things that don't work, and then figuring out what does, and then just consistently doing it every single day. I thought I did really well, and when I saw that I only journaled 150 days, which means that I only did meditation 150 days, I was actually pretty blown away. I was kind of disappointed in a way because that's less than half the year. So my goal this year is to do every single day, and so far I've been good with that, and I don't plan on changing that. If I did that last year and I just did that half the year, and I had some marginal success, I can only imagine what doing it every single day this year is going to be. I'm betting that it's going to double my business this year because I'm going to be working twice as hard on all of the mindset stuff. In all honesty, mindset was 80 to 90% of the reason why I had any success last year. And I think it's going to be 80 to 90% of the reason why I have any success in a year. So if I don't do it, I have no chance of being successful. And that is my speech.
I have trouble with meditation. I've tried to dabble in it, and it's like, man, my mind just goes, and then I start thinking, am I meditating? I'm not sure.
I'm the exact same way.
So, how did you learn or get to
and it's great that you said that because I struggle with the same thing every day. I have no idea if I'm doing it right. It's something that I want to explore much more this year and maybe work with someone who can help me with it more. What's worked for me is I do guided meditations because I can focus on what they're saying a little bit better, and then breathing. So I'll do, breathe in through your nose for 3 seconds, and then breathe out through your mouth for 6 seconds, and I'll count so that I'm mostly focused on like the counting 1, 2, 3, and then breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's helped a lot for me. Is really focusing on the breathing and like trying to pick something because I'm the same way. I was a little hesitant to read and then dive into meditation because I thought I'd be thinking about it too much. But there's also nothing wrong with that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about being quiet and silent, and in a way, I kind of combine that with also a little bit of visualization. And I know it's not really like how you're supposed to do it. Like I said, it's really at the end of the day, it's whatever works for you. And it's consistent. I mean, the mind is an amazing thing, but it's also a terrible thing. It is so hard to control. And it's not going to happen, I'm not going to get good at meditating for a year. It's probably going to take me 10 years before I actually am like truly meditating. But I'm only going to get good if I do it every day and keep working through this stuff and then keep reading, I'll have that same problem, and so then I'll find a podcast or buy a book about it and then maybe pick something up and be like, okay, let me try that. oh, that didn't work for me. Okay, keep going. And so the one that's worked for me is in through your nose, count to 3, and then breathe out through your mouth, count to 6. So slowly breathe out, and just keep doing that the whole time. And try and really focus on, like, imagine your breath coming in, imagine bringing in good energy, and then imagine seeing your breath come out through your lungs, and like really trying to focus and hone in on the breathing to sort of block out some of these other thoughts. But I mean, they all say that everyone struggles with that. They say you can like try and think about it, or you like put that thought into like a safe and shut the safe or something, or imagine it as a train passing by. None of that stuff really worked for me. So you just kind of like, I try not to fight it, because then that's when you start being like, oh, like, oh, I'm not meditating, and then the next thing you know, you're like, what did I just do for 20 minutes? I just argued with myself in my brain. So I just, just let them happen. I mean, it's something that, it's probably not going to work. I do that every day, and I've been doing it. I did it like 150 some days last year. I'm hoping like within 2 years, I'll be able to actually like clear the mechanism. But it's only going to happen if I do it every single day now and keep working on it.
Did you start with 20 minutes, or did you build up to that?
No, I started with 10, 15, and it was the same like the whole time I was just battling. Like, man, I forgot. There's all this stuff running through my head. Like, I close my eyes and I wake up and be like, oh wait, I don't even think I did anything. And the other reason why I was doing 10 was because I, was so unhealthy, and I couldn't sit cross-legged. I was unable to. Up until, I can now, I can sit cross-legged indefinitely, but, so I would only, but I really wanted to sit cross-legged because all the people I see meditating do that. and I'm like, that must be the secret. That's why I can't focus, is because I can't sit cross-legged. Yeah, so I started with 10 minutes, and then now 20 seems to be like perfect. And for me, it was more about, sometimes you get antsy, like especially if I wake up a little bit late, oh, I gotta do this, and I'm like, no. You're gonna read your chapter of your book, you're gonna meditate for 20 minutes, you're gonna write in your journal, everything else has to wait. Because if you don't do this, if you don't focus on yourself, if you're not the best for yourself first thing in the morning, no one else is gonna get anything good from you. And you're not gonna be able to do anything good for anything else for the rest of the day. So screw everyone else. Do it, stick to it, and then when you're done, pull your computer up, make those phone calls, do whatever you need to do. But this routine is the one that made the most, I think, impact to my safety. I got really lucky. My parents bought me those over-the-ear Bose, just noise-canceling headphones, and then I find stuff on YouTube, man.
Guided meditation?
Yeah, just look for guided meditation, and like I said, it's the same. I listened to 30 or 40 different ones before I found like 2 or 3 that really worked for me. I've got one where he really talks about, if you can see it on the screen in your mind and you can hold it in your hand, everything you think about in your mind you can manifest and visualize into your life. And when I first started listening to it, I was like, man, this guy's on some like weird shit. But now, like, I'm down a rabbit hole. I'm not even gonna go into the other stuff that I'm looking into now, like quantum physics and frequencies and stuff. But I'm ready to get out there and get weird. Yeah.
What are your top 2 or 3 favorite podcasts, or most effective? You can
Okay.
throw it at me.
So it all depends on. So I listen to like maybe 5 different podcasts in 3 different categories. My favorite real estate related podcast, motivation wise, is Get Shit Done Mode, GSD mode, with Josh something. But the cool thing is that all these guys do is interview all the top producing real estate agents, mortgage brokers, mindset coaches, business coaches, social media marketing people. These are all the top people in the industry, and they have them on for an hour, and they tell all of this stuff, and they give you all of these crazy ideas on stuff that's working for them. And so you get to learn everything you could possibly learn from all these people. There's another one that I really started liking on called the Jimmy Rex Show. And he interviews some cool people, and that usually speaks to me pretty well. And then I do Robin Sharma and Tony Robbins. real estate investing ones, so the real estate guys, bigger pockets. I still do bigger pockets a little bit, but I've sort of like, I know on the real estate investing side, I know what I want to do now, and mostly like, I'm really mostly focused in like multifamily and commercial buildings. And so I've kind of gotten away from like the house flipping and stuff, and more into like the developer, multifamily, commercial. And then I love the agent podcasts are the one that speak to me the most. I mean, they get on people where they're like, oh, this guy in his first year in business did 100 transactions and, you know, made $750,000 in GCI. And then he asks him, how did you do it? And he tells his whole story exactly how he did it. Now, obviously, not everything they do I'm going to put into practice, but if there's one thing I pick up and try and put in my business and it makes it happen, then it's worth it. GSD mode is a good one. Super Agents Live is another one. It's a little bit tough to listen to if you're he's a real strong and opinionated guy, but he gets some really good people on there. Actually, he just had one right now with Rod Cleef, a big multifamily, massive multifamily investor who had $50 million of money, of success, lost it all, and then built it all back up and has doubled that now. But big motivation guy as well, and that one's done a lot for me. Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Man, this guy is incredible. He like super inspiring.
And actually, I did want to say it was kind of funny. So before I moved here, Teddy kind of touched briefly on it, but one of my mentors, real estate investor in San Francisco, had this lady that moved into her building, and I when I left San Francisco, I threw this big party in this building, and it was in the basement of this building, and she lived above it. And so we became friends, and she found out I was moving to Nashville, and she was like, oh, I've got a buddy that lives out there. His name's Teddy. You should meet him if you're thinking about real estate. So she set up a meeting. Teddy and I talked, we had lunch at a Little Octopus when it was still out. And I did the same thing. I just asked him, like, what do you do? Do you like real estate? How do you like it? Like, should I do it? Here's what I did. And what books should I read? What podcast should I listen to? Like, what should I do? And then I had no idea where he worked. I didn't really know how real estate works. I didn't know that he had worked for a brokerage. And then I signed up with Village. Now I know he's here. And then had Bobby Murray, and he came out of the Jumpstart class. And I was like, I remember that guy.
There he is. There he is. I would add a couple of pieces too, just from a personal experience, as well as just really focus on progress over perfection, like you mentioned, right? It's just about starting a habit and doing one thing greater today than you did yesterday. 5-minute journal. If you're looking for some way to get started in journaling, the 5-minute journal is a great way. It literally takes 5 minutes. You can just copy the page. You don't even provide a book. Just go to Google, 5-minute journal, and put that into your daily calendar. So that's a nice way where you can just put it in your daily calendar, so you can do it there electronically if you're on the go or forget something like that. But really, just starting small, being easy on yourself, but being consistent. That if you do anything well, I guarantee you, if you just put your sign as a sandwich sign on your front and back, and you stood in front of this office every day outside on the corner, and you did it consistently, somebody's going to call you and ask you to work because they just see how reckless you are and committed to something consistently. So that would be my encouragement. Chris is an absolute testament to that. So. Awesome. Thank you all. Thursday, 2 to 3, if you want to, I'll be teaching on marketing calendars and trying to get I'll give you samples of all of that. It's a beautiful way to kind of put your whole year out there, again, to be consistent and accountable. Great job. Thank you all.
Thanks for showing up.